So when these are out of balance, what we say is that when the emotions are unresolved.
G'day, I'm Charly, your online business manager and business coach. My goal is to assist small to medium business owners build their businesses with a focus on using the internet and online technologies in an appropriate and cost-effective manner. People hire me to take the stress out of managing their businesses and allow themselves to focus on what they do best. Welcome to another weekly interview. I am really excited about this one, and it's funny how things align, and you will see why I say that when we go into this discussion. I have Daniel Tolson with me today. He is a former Australian champion athlete and a coach and a whole heap of other things, but I'm going to let Daniel tell us a little bit about himself. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Thanks, Charlie. I learned many years ago, reading some work on Socrates. Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And on my road to becoming an Australian champion, I would go out and I would practice. I'd go up and down the river. I would go around and around at the cable ski park. I'd jump up and down on the trampoline, and everything that I did, my brother would record on the video camera. And then after training, we'd come home and sit down in front of the television, and we would watch all the things we'd done during that day. And my mum would say, aren't you sick of this already? You've been training all day, now you're watching the video all night. And I said, Mum, the unexamined life is not worth living. And I'm playing back this movie of me practicing so I can figure out what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong, and then I can course correct. Now, I know that you call that mindfulness. I believe a lot of my competitors were mindless. That was my advantage. My mind was full and focused on what I wanted.
Right. That's fascinating. Now, before we go any further, what were you an Australian champion athlete at? What was it? I couldn't find that in your blurbing stuff here.
The sport is wakeboarding. So if you could imagine a surfboard crossed with some water skis and getting pulled down the river, that's the sport. And how I got into it was my father was a barefoot water skier. So what we were doing on the board, he was doing with no skis on his feet. So we had been trained at a young age and we grew up on the water.
That sounds like a heap of fun, and it sounds very Australian to me, I might add, because that's what we do. Alrighty, look, now I wanted to just highlight, and it came up in our pre-discussion before we started the recording here. You said something about you attract the things that you're looking for, or you attract like people to you. And I just find it quite amusing that you've raised a couple of things that I have posted recently on my podcast and said, this is why this is something that I found was really interesting. I'm like, yeah, it's not unusual that you've actually come to be on the show as a result of that. So let's have a chat about that. And then I want to talk about that special technology that you've got. I don't know what you call it. I can't find it in my notes here because I'm a very bad note taker. And pull it all together if you don't mind.
Absolutely. In preparing for today's call, I found a beautiful quote from Einstein. And Einstein said, everything is energy. And if you match the frequency of the reality you want, you cannot help but get that reality. And this is what Mind Report is all about. It's understanding the frequency of your mind and body. And our team has developed a piece of technology that measures the brainwave frequencies in your voice. It's tied in with epigenetics, it's tied in with psychology. We use AI technology and big data and machine learning. And what we have the ability today is just to measure the brainwave frequencies in your voice. And inside of that Mind Report that we'll unpack today, it reveals to you your unique stress type. All of us get stressed, but what stresses me is not going to stress you because we cope differently, we're wired differently. The Mind Report also reveals to us our personality types. And I know with what you talk about mindfulness. So many leaders, and I believe we've all had them, we've had mindless leaders. And we say, this person doesn't know themselves. They got here by luck or by chance, and they don't even know what's going on. And with mindless leadership, we say, you can't give what you don't have. If I'm a leader and I'm mindless, what can I possibly offer you? But if we have a mindful leader and they're full of awareness, they understand why they think and feel the way that they do, then they can start to give that to others. We also look at the 7 energy centers in the body. Snow White had 7 dwarves. There's 7 holes in the human face. There's 7 days in the week. And we've got 7 chakras. And to fill our mind with goodness, we've got to understand what's in that chakra. And each of those 7 chakras have their own frequency. And if the frequency is too low, we will attract the wrong people. And that's where Einstein said, everything is energy. So that's what I want to unpack with you today.
That sounds awesome. And I really love the term. I love the term mindless. And it's not, and I'm just going to explain this to our audience. It's not that we think that people are stupid and don't have any intelligence. In what we're talking about here, it's about they're not in tune with the emotional intelligence that's needed to manage a team. And if you've been watching my podcast for a bit, you'll know that a lot of what I'm about is building a team, building a successful team that can support you. But it's not just about supporting you, it's about you supporting your team as well and helping your team achieve their own success, or your individual team members achieve their own success as well. And that to me is such a powerful thing. Like, that's a major motivator for me. I don't know if you've ever got that out of anything I've spoken about, but that's a major motivator for me. It's not just me being successful, but it's helping my team be successful. So that's what we meant when we're talking about people being mindless. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're not intelligent. Some of these people are incredibly intelligent. They're just not in touch with the interpersonal skills and the emotional intelligence that they need to help their team do what their team does best. Okay, there we go.
It's a beautiful topic. In emotional intelligence, there's 5 pillars. The first pillar is self-awareness, and that's understanding why you think and feel the way that you do. The 4th pillar of emotional intelligence is social awareness. It's understanding why other people think and feel the way that they do. So one is about you, one is about others. And everybody throughout their career has had the leader who says, don't do what I do what I say. And everybody says, what? You preach one thing, but you don't do it yourself. So if a leader wants to understand how other people think and feel the way that they do, they've first got to explore themselves. And that comes back to what Socrates said. The unexamined life is not worth living. If a leader doesn't examine their own life, they will never get followers. They might get positional power, but they won't get followers. Now, for a leader, they have to be able to do 2 things really well. They've got to be able to have influence. And we've heard the saying over and over again, a man convinced against his own will be of the same opinion still. So if they don't have influence, they don't get followers. And all leaders have to make an impact. And that'll be a mindful impact, and it'll produce positive results. Or it'll be a mindless impact, and it'll produce negative results. And everybody wakes up in the morning and they don't say, I want to have a bad day at work. They don't say, I want to have a conflict with the customer. They say, I'm going to be here for the next 45 years. I want to have a great day. I want to do what I love. I want to get acknowledged. I want to get respected. I want admiration. And that's how they want to go to work. But unfortunately, there's conflicts. And if we can get to know ourselves better as leaders, then we can move away from the golden rule, which is treating others the way you want to be treated. And we can move towards the platinum rule, which says treat others the way they want to be treated. I'm aggressive. I'm competitive. I'm a former Australian athlete. I want to win everything. I've got to be number 1. Not everybody's wired like me. And I made that mistake as a young leader, that I treated everybody on my team as a competitor. Imagine your leader competing against you. I did that because
yes, I can imagine that.
So that's what I want to talk about today. Stress, Charly, when I was reading some articles this morning, Medibank Private reported that stress is costing the Australian economy $14 billion per year. And if we divide that cost up for every man, woman and child, that's in excess of $500 personal cost per year.
Yeah.
So it tells us that the bill's high, which means the regulation of the stress must be low. And the purpose of mindfulness is to be able to regulate that stress. And we see it, people who are more mindful regulate their stress better. So as we talk about stress, what I learned many years ago was that a doctor by the name of Dr. Dean Siegel, he once said, if you can't name it, you can't tame it. And I think we've all had stress before, and we say, I know I'm stressed, but why is the stress still there? Why doesn't it go away because we go, I'm stressed? It's because we don't know what specific stress actually impacts us personally.
That was actually going to be my next question is, we all know that we have stress, but so many people don't understand what that stress is. And all they know is that they've got stress. And again, we were talking just before we came on here, we were talking about there is good stress and there is bad stress. Everyone has stress, and there is good stress and there is bad stress. As human beings, we actually need some level of adversity to be able to stretch and grow and become better versions of ourselves. That's the good stress. Then there's the bad stress. So do you want to go into that just a little?
Through the Mind Report, what we've learned is that there's 3 types of stress. The first type of stress is what we call logical stress. Logical stress people will get stressed out about their career, about their finance, and they'll get stressed about health. It also tells us that logical stress people are very good with people, and they don't lose sleep over other people. So the first part is logical stress. On the other end of the scale is what we call emotional stress. And emotional stress people will lose sleep over family, over friends, and over customers. For me, I'm a very much emotional stress type of person. And I'll wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and go, what's my customer doing? Oh my gosh. I'll lose sleep over them. Some people lose sleep over their pets. Who say anything with a heartbeat.
Yes. This I can relate to. That 1 o'clock or 3 a.m. wake up where you're like, oh, I've got to do this, and I should ring so-and-so, and I need to. Yep.
And then everybody else falls in the middle. And we call that compound stress. And that's a mix of both. And that can be confusing. So we've got to figure out that balance. And what we say today in my field is we say trust in science. You know, if you're feeling sick and you've been sick for a long time, you'll go to the doctor. The doctor will do an examination, and then the doctor will send you to pathology for a diagnosis. You do x-rays, you do MRIs, you do blood tests. And what the doctor's doing is the doctor's making the invisible visible, so you can see objectively. And that's what we do with Mind Report. We're not taking an x-ray of your bones or your ligaments. What we're doing is we're taking an x-ray of your mindset. And they're saying, what is in that mindset? What causes you stress? So if we think about it, based on Australian research lately, 61% of people are losing sleep over finance. They're losing sleep over their bills, over their loans, business owners about cash flow. 44% of the population, which is the people who are getting affected by relations, they're losing sleep about career and job. You know, the University of Queensland said that we're going to be in the workforce for 45 years. So stress is something that we have to be able to manage really well. And we've got to get there faster. We can't do it slowly. The other thing with stress which I found really fascinating was when it comes to relationship stress, we will spend as little as 4 minutes per day conversing with our spouse. but we'll spend 120 days of our lifetime brushing our teeth. And if we do the numbers, according to Michael Fortino, he said that we speak to our children for as little as 30 seconds per day.
Wow.
So these are the different things that are causing stress. So when you completed your mind report, we had a look at what impacts you. And for mindfulness, for you, the type of stress that impacts you is what we call cumulative stress. So it tells us that you've got a really easygoing personality. And the stress for you, it'll slowly build up over time. And it will come from unresolved issues or an issue that keeps going and there's constant exposures. And then eventually, it'll be like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. I can see you laughing.
You've been around me a bit, have you?
What are examples like that in your life of stress, that accumulation, building up, constant exposure?
No, it absolutely is. I'm just going to say I have been equated to a fizzy bottle, a drink of fizzy water, and I'm fine until someone shakes it and lets the lid off. Just don't shake too hard. So for me, finances. That's a big one. So if my finances, if I can't control my finances, if I don't feel like I'm in control, managing them, they can be bad. I just need to be able to manage them and know what's coming in, what's going out, what I need to do. And when someone starts to mess around with that, that's a trigger. I've had problems with my bank this week doing some really dumb things, and oh boy did they cop it, because it was like, this isn't your money, this is my money, you can't be messing me around like this. I'm a business owner and business owners require cash flow, you've got to understand this. And like, we don't, like, they were just so not in touch with the impact that one decision had, not just on me, but on my providers and my subcontractors and my suppliers, because them stopping, like, there was a payment held because they had to review it, but that payment getting stopped meant all of my suppliers didn't get paid on time. So now I've got to manage that with them, and that they got that back. What else stressed me? Family stresses me, not knowing what my kids are doing, not knowing if my kids, not what they're not doing, but not knowing if they're well, not knowing what's going on in their lives, and then finding out later on that, oh, well, you know, this happened and this happened. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? I'm your mother. Why didn't you tell me? Like, you always get so stressed about that, Mum. Yes, you do. It's me. I'm your mother. You've lived with me for 30 years. You should know this by now. So there you go. There's some examples for you.
They're the perfect examples because you've got both logical and emotional stress. Where some people say, well, I get impacted by both. But a lot of people, in reality, I know a businessman recently, and he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He never loses sleep over his family. He never loses sleep over team. He just doesn't think about them. Like, in terms of mindfulness, that doesn't fill his mind. He doesn't lose sleep over it. But a deal, a little bit of money, a negotiation, he will go to bed at 3 in the morning and you'll just keep ticking over. And other people go, what's the deal? Why don't you get stressed about people? He said, it's not about the people. It's great with people. It's about the business. And I think this is important as business owners. What do you lose sleep over? And where do you position yourself? In my business right now, because stress changes over time, like your blood sugar levels, they change over time, your weight changes over time. For me right now, the type of stress for me is logical stress. And we're in a growth phase. And all I do is, when I go to bed, when my wife goes to bed, we talk about business. Business. What does it impact? Health. But our relationships are all stable. But there's been times where we only get stressed with the sentimental or the relationship stress. So that logical stress, it's in the moment. It's right now. It's happening in the present time. where the sentimental and the relationship stress, it's of the past, and it's been bubbling under the surface for a very long time. So they have a very big impact, but in different ways and at different times.
How would you manage them? What sort of some advice you can give to people on recognizing it, and then I'm not going to say deal with it, because I'm not sure you ever totally deal with stress. And I'm really, really careful when I say, oh, you can get rid of all your stress. You can't, and you don't want to. Really, you don't want to get rid of all your stress. You'll be dead. That's what that means to me. But how can they address it and manage it? There's a better word.
Well, you're right, it changes over time. It's always going to be there. And an accurate diagnosis is half the cure. If you complete the mind report and you get the awareness, remember we say awareness precedes change. If you identify and go, that's exactly what's stressing me, half the other problems disappear. Because you say, oh, now I get it. That doesn't bother me. And as a leader, if you understand the type of stress that your team are going through, then you can lead them and you can course correct them differently. So it always starts with awareness, and then the awareness precedes change. And I believe that most people have very good regulation strategies, especially business owners. You suffer disappointments, you have wins, you go to bed on Sunday night with great levels of optimism, and then by Wednesday, you're going to throw it all in the trash, and you're going to start a job, you're going to go back to your crew, you're going to tear up all the contracts, and then you have a win on Thursday and you're back on top of the mountain. So you've got to be able to understand. And I think the accurate diagnosis is half the cure.
Excellent. Okay. Something came up just there, and I was just thinking about it. No, it's gone. That happens a lot. Things come and go as we think. You might have even answered it as we went. No, I can discard that.
It's good to let stress go. It's good to let it go, and it is the silent cure.
That was the question. You triggered it right there. The question is, sometimes just recognizing that stress is enough. And is it a valid strategy? Let me phrase this as a question and not as a statement. Is it a valid strategy to say, that's the stress, I acknowledge it now, I'm just going to put that to the side and keep moving? Because sometimes you can't do anything about it.
Absolutely. It's a function of the unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind dictates all of our behaviours. And what the unconscious mind will do, it will present to you a message, a sign, a feeling. And if you can just identify what that message is from the unconscious mind, that's enough to resolve that issue. So you don't have to have therapy all the time. You don't have to go to counselling all the time. And that's where we say if you can't name it, you can tame it. If you say to yourself, I'm losing sleep over money, 99% of the other things, problems that you thought were problem disappear. And the unconscious mind says, now it's in your conscious awareness, you can manage it. And sometimes with the way that the unconscious mind works, it's just enough to acknowledge it for it to disappear. So it is a function. It's what we call a prime directive of the unconscious mind. It's hardwired into us. You don't need therapy. You're not sick. You just got to figure out what it is, and then the accurate diagnosis is half the cure. Now we just get into regulation.
See, now if I was to put that into technical terms, because I'm a tech by trade, I would say that would be recognizing that when you start up your computer always does this, therefore your process has to take that thing into consideration. Once you've taken that thing into consideration, it's no longer a problem because you know it's going to do it, you know how to deal with it, you move on.
Test, operate, test, exit. You operate and you go, that doesn't work well, and then you exit out of that and do something differently. And that's also a function of personality. You know, as you upgrade a computer, you can also upgrade your mindset. There's always a stimulus, and our response is always determined by the environment, which you mentioned before. Sometimes you have absolutely no control over your environment. None at all. You could wish you have, you could dream about it. Most of the time you have no control over your environment. What you do have control over is your personality. Because based on our personality, that also determines our response. And within that personality are all those emotions. And the first response is always emotional. Oh, so how do I respond? I respond logically. I respond with emotional stress. Or I might just let it build up over time and let it compound. Now, once we can influence our emotions, then we can take better actions. But unfortunately, that emotional response is when we're triggered over and over and over and again, we have an emotional hijack. And we bypass critical thinking.
You're speaking my language.
and that's personality. And when we look at our mind report, the second thing we're looking at is what's your personality type? And all of us have a unique personality, and most people, psychologists would tell us it takes 50 years to get over the first 5 years of our life. And in that first 5 years of our life, that's when the programming takes place. Your personality is often locked in before age 10. Now, one thing that I've got to say is that when we use different models to look at people's personality, we often say that personality is fixed. And I believe that there's an element of truth. I'm not saying it's true for me, but I'm saying there's an element of truth. When we look at mind report, we say that personality is dynamic. It's fluid. It will change over time. The question is, what changes personality? Becoming a mother. Becoming a father. Having a new sibling. Starting a new career. Changing country. A massive natural disaster, COVID-19. All of these things can impact your personality. And there'll be people listening to your show and they'll say, I've become a different person because of COVID. Other people will say, I remain the same. And that's where I say it could be fixed, but it could be fluid. And it does change, and that's where we've got to upgrade our operating system. Apple the other day sent me through an upgrade for software on my phone. My phone's not the same phone today as it was a week ago. It's constantly changing. So, personality is so important to understand for us to have mindfulness. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And I think that's mindfulness.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about personality then. I'm not sure how I feel whether personality is fixed or personality can change. I think there is a degree that it can change. I think the base personality is pretty much there, but it's the add-ons that you put on it. It's the improvements you add to it. And there was something you said, and I don't remember who said it originally, but it was, you can't control your environment or your reaction to it. And that is how I approach a lot of things, because I've had to. You can't. People will often tell you, doing just walk away. Just walk away. Take yourself out of the phone. Not sometimes. Sometimes people will not let you gracefully retire from the battleground. Sometimes you like that. And you respond to it. But can we talk a little bit about, I know you've got something there for, and just so people understand, did the mind report before? I don't know what the results are. Through some of them now. So let's have a talk about what you found.
When we look at your personality type, your style in general, your base personality is what we call the peacemaker. And the peacemaker is very people-oriented. They have a love for humankind. Everything they do is for other people. And your personality type has a very deep empathy for people. It's a depth of understanding. You just don't see people, you see below the surface. And for your style as the peacemaker, there's this level of tolerance. It's like you've got to the stage in your life where you can remove judgment away from most people in most situations. And that's because of your emotional sensitivity. And with the peacemaker, what the peacemaker wants is they just want everybody to get along. Why do you have to fight? Why can't you get what you want? And why can't this other person have what they want? And so your style is the peacemaker. And as we see you there today, you're sitting inside the lotus. You're there. And it's this balance and harmony. And what you want more than anything else, the desire of the peacemaker, is the desire for inner peace. That's the desire. That's the goal. That's what you're working towards as the peacemaker. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I think I'm going to add to that possibly one of the personality traits of the peacemaker is once you've burnt them, you've burnt them. Trust is a hard thing, and if you break trust with a peacemaker, someone like myself, yeah, it's really hard to get back from that. Some people it doesn't matter. For me, yeah, it's big.
One of the questions that people often ask, they say, how did I become like this? How did I get this personality? And as we said before, psychologists will tell us it takes 50 years to get over the first 5 years of our life. And each personality style has different childhood experiences. And there's 2 childhood experiences that peacemakers go through to create this personality. The first part is very sad beginnings. The second part is having your feelings ignored as a person. Which one of those did you experience?
I don't know. I honestly, if I think back to my childhood, it's not that I don't remember much about my childhood. It's just that it's all sort of blurred together. I don't know.
And this is the goal. Once we reflect, and the reason why I want you to reflect on that one is because when I look at your heart chakra is overactive. And there's 2 things that correlate with an overactive heart chakra is heartache, sadness, and grief. And it's a very long, lingering grief. But it's also connected to the peacemaker personality.
Interesting.
So these are all the wonderful things.
So you say, I mean, honestly, grief would probably be my marriage, or the end of my marriage, or whatever led up to the end of my marriage. That was a big one. And most people will know that I had a business that failed spectacularly, and I took a lot of people with me when it happened. I took a lot of loved ones with me when it happened. So there's people around me that were relying on me that I didn't support them. I couldn't support them. Not that I didn't. I couldn't support them.
From traditional Chinese medicine, for all of us, what we've got to learn is that the emotion of grief correlates to the heart chakra. But the grief also settles in our lungs. And it's between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning that our lungs are operating at their peak. And this is the time that the body's trying to express the grief. So if you've ever woken up in the morning feeling heart pain or grief, this is your lungs trying to process it through the body. And we can also see it in ourselves. A lot of times when we go through those periods of times of a loss, some of us who are impacted at the heart chakra, the breathing becomes laboured. It's hard to breathe, and we find it that we common get respiratory problems. Have you ever had respiratory problems?
Oh, from the time I was a young child. Yes. Bronchitis, colds, the whole lot. Yeah. And I was actually thinking there was a time in my life where I actually said it felt like my heart was breaking, like my chest was so sore. I felt like my heart was breaking.
How about we shift gears and let's take a deep dive into the energy centres and we'll put a little bit of a frame around this. We say that there's 7 days in a week. Now, 7's this mystical number. Snow White had 7 dwarves. There's 7 colours in the rainbow, and we have 7 chakras in the human body, and these are 7 energy centres. And coming back to what we said earlier, Einstein said that everything is energy. And what I learned from first-hand experience during the pandemic was that emotions are more contagious than COVID.
Yes, very much.
What happened to me, I was training groups of 500 people, 1,000 people back to back to back. And I ended up getting sick. And what happened was I absorbed other people's emotions. And through the internet, these emotions get amplified. If you're talking to one person, you're going to pick up on their emotions because of the neural activity. We have a set of neurons in the brain called mirror neurons. And our eyes look at you, they look at your facial expressions, your blink rate, your muscle movements, your body language. And to understand that, these mirror neurons fire off. And whatever's happening in you starts to happen in me. Now, put 500 people in a room, having 500 emotional experiences, my brain was going out of control. And I absorbed a lot of people's emotions. And it eventually made me sick. And I had about a year off just to recover. And all of that impacts our energy centres. So when I look at your mind report, it's showing me the energy in all 7 areas. And the first thing that I saw was that your crown chakra and third eye chakra are perfectly balanced. And when these are balanced, we have a spiritual connection. It's like we've already achieved some enlightenment. And I think the people who you are very close with and the people that you work with, they probably use words like, you're very insightful, you're very intuitive, you're very wise beyond your years. Do you get that type of feedback from people?
Not those words exactly, but similar. Yeah, intuitive, yes. I use the term I problem solve intuitively. Give me a problem and I'll work it out. And a lot of it is just intuition in terms of I think it's here, let's go look here. And that's, yeah, there's a lot associated with that. And I know I get people, team members will just say, have you got 5 minutes? I just need to talk. I just need to talk and I just need to get your take on something because they know that I'll give them something back that they can work with. I don't know what that is. They go work that out themselves.
Oftentimes, when people's crown chakra and third eye chakra are balanced, it's almost like they're psychic. And when somebody comes and talks to you, you already know. Do you have those experiences?
Occasionally, yeah. Yeah.
So your crown and third eye chakra are balanced. The 2 that are overactive are your throat chakra and your heart chakra. One question, and please be free to accept it or reject it. When you were going through your divorce, prior to that, do you feel that your voice was silenced? Do you feel that you weren't heard, that you couldn't speak up?
Yeah. 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 And yes, there was a long time that was the case, yeah. Not just the divorce, but it was a long time that was the case, yeah.
So oftentimes when our throat chakra is too high, there's things that we want to say. But because of an authoritarian upbringing or people in our vicinity, we're not allowed to speak. And so the throat chakra gets too much energy in there. And what that leads to, that if we don't deal with it, that leads to respiratory problems. That leads to the asthma and the bronchitis. And then with the overactive heart, that then impacts the immune system, specifically the lungs. So when these are out of balance, what we say is that when the emotions are unresolved, they show up in uglier ways. So the unresolved grief or the sadness or the heartache or the loss, or because we've been silenced in the environment, it ends up coming out in illness in the body. And about 84%, 85% of illness today is reported to be psychosomatic in nature, where the mind is making the body sick. Not a virus. It's the mind, it's the stress that makes us sick.
What percentage?
It's about 84, 85%.
Okay.
And it's called psychosomatic.
I can actually give you an example of that. And that was when I was going through, as a much, much younger woman, going through my Associate Diploma of Electronic Engineering and getting to exam time. I was always sick. It was without a doubt, within a day of the first exam, I would be knocked out. I would be so sick because I make myself sick with the stress and the worry of the exams.
Exactly. And we all do it. We even talk about it. What do we say? Monday-itis. Why do we get Monday-itis? Because we don't like the job. But people say, I just got mysteriously sick. Well, how does everybody get sick on a Monday? The interesting thing with illness is that most people have heart attacks early on in the day, on the way to work.
Yeah,
the suicides take place after lunch, which is really interesting. So in a place like New York, the fire brigade, so the paramedics are ready with their ambulances to attend to heart attacks on Monday morning. Highest rate of heart attacks, Monday morning. People have had a weekend off, they've had a lot of fun, and now they've got to go back to the JOB. And the heart goes, I don't like this, and stops. Now, if the heart attack doesn't kill you on Monday morning, the firefighters are ready for after lunch on Monday, when people actually start to throw themselves off the side of the building.
Wow.
And this is the stress. You know, if our mind was full with this awareness, we would say, I understand what I'm going through. But then we would have a new belief that asking for help is a sign of strength. And unfortunately, part of our culture is asking for help is a sign of weakness. But it's not.
We don't know how to. Yeah.
Strong people ask for help. And we've got to get others to get past the fear of judgment. It's like a doctor. A doctor's not going to judge you for having an illness or a disease. They train their whole life. Now, there's an old saying. Professional soldiers pray for peace, but hope for war. Because a professional soldier can only save your life, protect the borders in times of conflict. Nobody likes to see anyone die, but they're trained for it. Like a doctor, they don't want people to be sick. They want you to be healthy. But unfortunately, most people wait to get ill before they do something about it. And even if you're really sick, the doctor is not going to judge you. Doctor's going to secretly say, thank you. Now I get to show you what I've studied for the last 25 years.
Oh, this is interesting. I'd like to see this. Yes. Now, Daniel, look, I'm just looking at the time because I know that you have an appointment after this. And we are getting very, very close on that time because I have been watching it. And I don't want to cut us short because this is such a great discussion. But let me just say that we are coming to the end of our time. There are a couple of things that I'd like to pull together out of all of this because it seems fascinating. First of all, how can people find out more about you and the Mind Report?
The best way to find me is go to my website, danieltolson.com, and in the top right-hand side there'll be a button that says Mind Report Free. Go and click that button, and I'll give you the same experience as I am giving Charly today. Taking her through her mind report, I'll do the same thing for you for free. Go and experience it. Because if you fill your mind with the right information, then you can make better decisions. You'll take the right actions and you'll get the right results. So go to danieltolson.com, press the button Mind Report Free, and experience it for free. And I'll guide you through it personally.
Awesome. And guys, you don't have to bring him on a podcast for him to walk you through it either, I promise. Now, we'll make sure I've got those contact details in the show notes. And Daniel, what's the one thing out of everything we've spoken about today that you want people to take away with them?
In 2018, I was working with a gentleman, and he was earning $600,000 per year in Australia personal income. And he had completed something very similar to a mind report. And he was encouraging one of his team members. He said, go ahead, complete this report. And he said, I'm scared. I'm afraid. I don't want to really look in the mirror and see what's there. And this gentleman who was earning $600,000 at the time, and the other guy was only earning about $100,000, he said, the scariest thing in life is actually to look in the mirror and see who you really are. And he says it's also the most liberating thing, because you understand your strengths, you understand your unique talents, and then you can choose a better future. Now, the other young gentleman, he put it off. Eventually, he got the courage to experience it. That young man has gone from earning $100,000 per year to also earning $600,000 per year. So what do? If you do what successful people do, you'll get the same results. And all successful people get an intimate understanding of who they are. So that's my advice. Do it. Understand who you are, and then attract a better future.
Love it. I absolutely adore it. Thank you so much. I am actually going to wrap us up because I know you have to go. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. If there's any questions that you have coming out of this, you want to drop some notes or comments if you're watching or listening to this, we will respond to you. As always, please remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, ring the notification bell so you find out when we drop more content. And we will see you next week for another fascinating episode. Thanks, guys. Bye. Thank you, Daniel.